Welcome to the Pulpit View podcast. My name is Stephen Garrett. With over 20 years of experience in leadership, family, and ministry, I've asked some brothers to come join me and have a conversation of what it takes to bring balance to each. Why don't you join me on this journey? Let's go. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. Hope you've had a great day. Want to encourage you tonight and want to come on for a quick moment, talk to the people for a moment as you're going through this week. I hope your week has been a great week. I hope it's been a successful week. I don't know about you, but recently, with all of the events that's going on, I found myself in a place of stress. I found myself in a place of just feeling the weight of the world. And so I wanted to come on tonight for a brief moment and just have a conversation. I wasn't on the last 2 weeks because I've been traveling and wanted to make sure as I came on tonight that we shared together some thoughts, not just on current events that's going on, but how do we handle it? As leaders, how do we handle when life is throwing its most at us? And sometimes it appears as if everything is compounding on us. So I want to bring you into a conversation I was having with with a friend of mine the other day. He's actually my trainer. I'm having a conversation with him, and I was telling him one of the things that I've been dealing with lately is I have so much on my plate, so many responsibilities that I feel as if, here it is, that I'm not really in control in this moment. I said, and I don't like not being in control. I said, I find myself being more reactive than proactive. Now, this was a few weeks ago. And so as we were sharing, he said, man, I've been in that same situation. I've dealt with that same issue. He said, and I really wish I could tell you how to get beyond it. How to get beyond it. He said, I really wish I had a way of telling you what would be the best thing to do to get beyond it. And I said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if it's something that you can easily do. I think it's something that you have to consistently work at. And so we started having this conversation. We start having this conversation around what it looks like. And that's going to be the subject of our conversation tonight, is controlling the controllable. So as you come in, I want to invite you to go on this journey with me. If this is your very first time watching the Pulpit View, my name is Stephen K. Garrett. I am the proud pastor of Bethlehem Missionary Baptist Church, where I have now served for 12 years. I've been in the pastorate ministry for 19 years. And I'm getting ready to celebrate 23 years as a preacher. And I want to just come in tonight to share with you some of my thoughts and my ideas on leadership and how you can live well and lead well at the same time. How you can lead well and live well at the same time. So tonight, I want to bring a few points in hand. I think this is going to be helpful to us if we have some dialogue tonight. And as you're going through your week, that is going to be helpful to you. I want you to continue to keep our country in our prayers as we are seeing some of the most idiotic behavior going on right now, and lack of leadership, lack of integrity. And so this was one of the reasons that I want to have this conversation tonight, because as we are watching what's going on in the world play out, I realize that as leaders, we are all being required to come with a response to the call of what should we do. And some of us are a little bit more reactive than we would like to be. We want to be proactive in our measures and make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do. So I want to give you 5 things tonight And here's the thoughts that I want you to understand. Here it is. Wise leaders focus their energy on what God has given them responsibility over instead of exhausting themselves trying to control everything. I want that to be our template tonight, that as a leader, your job is to control what is yours to control and to delegate or to decipher what is not yours to control. So tonight we're talking about controlling the controllables. Here it is. The first thing I want to give you, I got 5 things tonight, and then I'm going to get off. This week is my son's birthday, and we're going to celebrate. The first thing I want to share with you is if we're going to hear and hear me with this, if you're going to control the controllable, you're going to have to be able to accept that some things are out of your control. That's where it starts. Can you accept that some things are out of your control? That some things do not function in the place of being in your control, in your area, in your wheelhouse. Some things are out of your control. And the truth of the matter is that can be difficult. That can be difficult. And I'm being honest with you. It can be difficult in our current society to not want to feel as if you're in control of everything that's happening into your life, especially when you have a lot of these motivational speakers that are speaking out. And hear me, there's nothing wrong with them, but there are some that want you to feel as if you control everything that happens in your life. You do not control everything that happens in your life, but you can control how you respond to everything that happens in your life. You cannot control when the doctor has given you a diagnosis that you do not desire. You cannot control when you have when your marriage is falling apart. You cannot control when the church finances are not doing what they need to do. You cannot control when you have a new job and you're having to become acclimated to the area that you're in now. So tonight, as we're talking about this, the first thing I want you to hit on is that there are some things that are just not in your control. I like how Proverbs 16:9 says it. It says, a man's heart deviseth his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. In other words, there's a way that I want to go. There's a way that I would desire to go. And the truth of the matter is, in the midst of that, God is still ordering my steps. God is still directing my path. Most of us have a plan. I was watching a judge show today, and this man had proposed to his girlfriend, and she said, I told him no, but that's because I had planned on being married at 40. And so the judge felt as if, she said, well, you look young for your age if you're over 40. She said, no, Judge, I wasn't ready to get married yet. And I said 40 was the age that I wanted to get married. That's what this woman shared. And the judge was sharing with her that not everything can be in an A, B, C order. Some things happen as a process. And some things we want to stay in control of that were never meant to be in our control. So here it is. You can make plans, but God still governs the outcome. I was talking to my doctor one day. We were talking about health. And he said, Stephen, I want you to understand something. Some things that he was sharing with me about myself. He said, I want you to understand something. I said, Doc, I'm working out all the time. I'm doing this. And you're telling me I'm not getting better in this area, or I need to do this. He said, Stephen, I want to share something with you. He said, he said, I can't say who it is. He said, but in the hall, he said, I have several patients in the hall, and it was a packed house. We had about 10, 15 folk in there waiting. He said, but there's some people in there that look in shape. There's some people that don't look in shape. He said, and I can tell you, one of the people that are not in the best physical health, he said, has the best health readings out of everyone. And one of the persons that are not in, that looks like they're in the best physical health, may not. He said, I want you to understand. He said, I want you to understand that I have clients that look great, on the outside, but they are not in control of what their body is doing on the inside. That's what he shared with me. He said they're not in control. And one of the hardest things to understand is that some things we just have to go through. And you can't control the things that are outside of your purview, outside of your reach, that are not for you. You cannot control who's going to have an accident tonight. You cannot control what the economy is doing right now. You can't even control what the news is going to present to you. What you can do is you can turn the news off. What you can do is drive safely in your lane and be attentive. You can't control what others are doing. So to understand you can't control, I want to give you some things you can't control that's going to, I believe, help release you as a leader. The first thing you can't control is timing. Timing. One of the things that was a breakthrough for me is if you do everything you're supposed to do, that when it happens, you know it's happened in the right time. But if you don't do everything you're supposed to do, that if it doesn't happen, you'll always question, are you the reason it's not happening? Let me make that clear. There are some people I know that are pastors. It was their first church. They pastored a large church. I'm talking about walked into, as some folk like to say, a house. Now, that's not judgmental to them. Some pastors feel as if you got to go through the ranks. You got to have that small church. That's not their lot. But I don't know what God was working on them that he wasn't working on me. And you don't either. Timing. And you might be in a situation that you're wondering, Lord, when is the change going to come? When is the breakthrough going to come? When is the situation going to turn around? And I want you to understand, you can't, as my mom would love to say, you can't hurry God. I don't care how much you want to. You can plead to God, you can pray to God, you can petition to God, and God will move on your behalf. But we do not have the privilege of making God move before it's time. But what you can do is prepare in the seasons that God has. It seems as God is quiet. Joseph, as he is in the jail cell, he is waiting for what he does not know. He is asked to be remembered. They do not remember him. But when tragedy shows up, someone remembers him, and he's brought before the king and is right at the right time. What if God has you on back order? What if God has delayed the shipping for you because he knows how vital you are to the call, and certain rooms you're not ready to be in? What if you really are the gift that God believes you, that God says you are, and that God knows that if you walk into this assignment, this elevation, however you want to put it, now that you will mess up what God has for you, and you've been too faithful to lose out on the gift that God has for you. So the first thing is timing. Timing. You cannot, and hear me well, you cannot, you cannot hurry God. You cannot hurry God. You cannot move. And can I tell you something else? You can't move people faster than you want to. Because that's a difficulty for us, right? That's a difficulty for us. Some of us want to move people. There are some members that I love dearly that we didn't have the best of relationships when we walked into the church. But I had to give them time to know me, and they needed to give me time to know them. I had to learn that people need timing. Not everyone's going to get on board or buy into the vision just because the vision was dynamic. I know what the Bible says, and it's true. Write the vision, make it plain. But here it is. The reason you're writing it is so they can read it and they can process it. But not everyone processes it on the same time. Not everyone processes it during the same time. So the first thing that I want to help release you is that you cannot control timing. Second thing is You cannot control people's decision. I want to speak to something that has been near and dear to my heart. They say the average person loses 7 intricate people in a lifetime. 7 intricate people in a lifetime. The average pastor / leader loses seven intricate people, 7 important people in their life every year. I'll say it again. They say the average person loses 7 people. Now, I'm not talking about someone has died. I'm talking about people have left. They're no longer friends with you. They're no longer close to you. And some of us, we want to change people's decision. I want to release that pastor tonight that's had members leave their church, and you believe you've done all you could. You visited them, you saw about them, you loved on them, and they still left. They still left. And you're wondering, what could I do better? You can't control people's decisions. Some people will choose not to like you no matter how much you do. Some people will choose not to hear the heart of you, the heart of their pastor, the heart of the leader, the heart of their husband, the heart of their wife, no matter how much you do what you need to do. And you cannot, and I want to share this with you, you cannot control people's decisions. You can't make that person come back home. You can't make that person make the right decision. You have to allow them to be them. So you can't control people's decision. Third thing is other people's attitudes. Other people's attitudes. Not only can I not control people's decisions, I can't control how people handle the decisions they make. Have you ever met somebody that's just ornery because they've led a bad life? They've done some things that messed them up, and now they're reaping the consequences, and they have an attitude. I can't control. But what I can control, hear me, I can control what attitudes I allow to be in my presence. I can control what attitudes I allow to be in my presence. I have the right to be restrictive of people. And I want you as a leader to understand you can't control their attitude, but you can control yours and what you allow to surround you. Last thing is you can't control every outcome. I want to tell you this, and this is something I've learned after 19 years of pastoring, 20 years of being married, 25 years of being an entrepreneur and a leader and a business owner. This is what I've learned. I want to share it. No matter how good you do, some things will not work. No matter how good the plan is, some things won't go. No matter how disciplined you are, some things will not buy out. Don't believe the hype. Some things will fail. Because here it is, you can practice for the race and still get beat. You can practice for the race. I remember a race that Usain Bolt came in second. It was a preliminary. He did not have to win first, but he came in second, and he went back and trained and trained and trained so he could beat the person who came in first. But sometimes you got to lose so you can develop yourself. You got to lose so you can build yourself up. There has to be some failure in your life to refine you and to finish you. Failure is where you learn where the weak spots are. Most folk don't understand some of the brokenness that they're dealing with until they comprehend that this did not work the way I planned. You cannot control every outcome. I want to share something with you. Some churches will not call you. Some churches will dismiss you and you were in the right. Some businesses will not work out. Some people will leave your life no matter how much you apologize, no matter how much you try to do right on your end. You can't control every outcome, but you can control the person who is experiencing the outcome. You get to choose to get back up and go back at it. What I love about the story of Usain Bolt was that he didn't say, oh, I'm done. He went back into training. Failure does not mean you're finished. It just means that there's some things that we can restructure and we can prepare again. And that's difficult. That is difficult, especially in times like this. What happens when you're doing everything right and it still seems like the people around you are not showing up the way that you're looking for them to show up? What happens when you're trying your best and it still seems as if the people around you are not doing what they need to do? And I want to share that with you because the outcome can be helped by you, but it cannot be determined by you. One of my favorite scriptures comes out of 1 Corinthians. One says 1 Corinthians chapter 4, where he says, Paul, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. You can do the work. I remember one year I had a garden. Everything started off beautiful. I planted, I tilled it, I did everything I need to do. I went out of town for a weekend. I came back and these tiny bugs had destroyed all of my squash. I'd done everything right. I even did the things before I left to make sure that my squash would be covered. But it rained, and it rained good. And so when I came back, my squash plants had holes all in it because these little critters got into it. I can either wallow in the fact that the squash was destroyed, or you can do what I did, and that is plant more. I planted more squash. That's what I did. Here it is. The truth is, not only can you not control timing, people's decisions, other people's attitudes, and every outcome, I need you to understand, frustration begins when we try to take the responsibility of what God has in his hands into our own hands. There are some things that the only reason you're frustrated about it is because it's not meant to be in your hands in the first place. It's not meant to be in your hands in the first place. When I'm one of the folk that they say are got issues, because when I get on the plane, I go straight to sleep. Pastor, this last trip I was on asked, man, how could you sleep through that whole flight? He said, we had some turbulence. How could you sleep through that whole flight? I said, can I tell you something? I said, it's not just because I'm a Christian, but it's the main reason is because I'm a Christian. He said, well, I am too, but could you just tell me why you could sleep? He said, man, you were good and knocked out. You had your head back. I said, I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to tell you how I could sleep. Very simple. I said, I can't fly a plane. So me staying up cannot add anything to the pilot. I said, it can't add anything to the pilot. I said, and here it is. I told him, I said, if we were going down, y'all screams would have woke me up. That's what I told him. I said, listen, I would have known if y'all were going down. But because we weren't, I decided to rest. And I want to challenge you tonight as we're going through this, that I want to challenge you to rest in the fact that God has control in these areas that you seem not to be able to control. That there are some things that was not meant for you. And the only thing you can control are the controllables. Here's one of the things you can control. I want to help you out. First thing you can control is your spirit. Listen, if you got a pen, I want you to write these things down because these are things that help to change my life. When I recognize the things that I was trying to control were not mine to control, and what I was trying to control, I was literally not doing the work I needed to do. The first thing is I can control my spirit. A leader without self-control becomes vulnerable. Here it is. Proverbs 25:28. He that have no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. I'll say it again. He that has no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down without wall. When you don't have self-control, can't tell you how many preachers recently that have been caught in the tabloids, caught in social media about the mess ups they've done. And part of that is because there's no self-control. Now, hear me. Hear me. No one's perfect. This is not the post. So before anyone gets on or someone shares, this is not the post to judge anybody or tell them they are to be perfect. But when you see your weaknesses, you start putting in boundaries and standards to make sure those weaknesses don't overcome you. Self-control is vital. What are the things that you can control if you're controlling your spirit? Let me share it with you. I just shared some earlier. First is your attitude. Second is your response. Third is your discipline. And fourth is your preparation. And here's the reason why those are so important. I get to control the narrative of how I feel when I come to church. There's some days that I am met at church with something negative. I'm coming in the door with something that I don't want to hear or I don't want to talk about in that moment. And I have a choice in that moment because there are other people dependent on the word that I'm getting ready to prepare and to give, how I'm going to portray it. So my attitude needs to be something that I decide to control. My response. I listen, not only is it my attitude, but if you have a bad attitude, more than likely you're going to have a bad response. My response needs to be one verse says wrapped in a golden apple, like a golden apple wrapped in silver. It has to be something that is ready before the person is even expecting. Because some people want you to act out. Some people want you to show your true character. Some people want you to go back to your old ways, and they're waiting to use it as ammo. But when you control your response, you take the control from them of weaponizing your response. I'll say that again. When you control your response, you take the control from the enemy, from the agitators, from the haters, from weaponizing your response. And so, what's your discipline look like? Are you setting the time aside so when God does show up in the opportunity, you are prepared for the opportunity? But not only do you control your spirit, but second thing you control, first thing is you don't control everything. The second thing is you can control your spirit. Third thing is you can control your focus. Here it is. If you learn to focus on your assignment, half of the things that you're stressing over will fall aside. I don't look at the next pastor to see what they're doing as a way of seeing what I'm not doing. There's some phenomenal pastors that I know that pastor small churches. And if I was that type of person, I would make it something negative of me because their church may be smaller than in people size than mine. They're doing great work in the community. I listen, there are some brothers like Joshua Anthony that's doing phenomenal work in his community and doing some great things. And the truth of the matter is he's on the outskirts of Tuskegee, the Macon County, Tuskegee area, and doing great works. God is adding to his church every day. Joshua Lewis, one of my good friends, Roland Austin, doing phenomenal work in the kingdom. My pastor, Pastor Daryl Caldwell, these major folk that I'm seeing, but here it is, I can appreciate because I'm focused on my assignment. I remember going to a convention and folk were talking about this one particular preacher and how many folk was coming to his church every Sunday, and it was all this jealousy in the being ring. I was like, man, how little time. Me and my wife were talking about it that day. I came back. I said, babe, I said, if I ever become one of them, that my only recourse to somebody else's blessing is to criticize or find the negative, please call me out on it. I'm not talking about calling out a preacher that's does not have theological doctrine. I'm not talking about calling out somebody that is living outside of the of God's design and plan. I'm talking about straight up hate. Straight up hate. Because God is doing something in them that you don't feel they're doing for you. And the truth of the matter is, if you focus on your assignment and you don't focus on the other man's hand, let me share it this way. There's a parable in the Bible where there's a man that's leaving to go, a king leaving to go to a far country, and he leaves one of his servants with 5 talents, one with 2 talents, one with 1. The one with 5 took it straight to the marketplace. The one with 2 did likewise. The one with 1 went and hid it and came back with all the excuses saying that he's watched the master. And the master takes and doesn't and from where he has not reaped. All these things that he says, right? Here's what I want to show you. It could be surmised. I'm not saying this is direct, but it could be surmised that the one with the 2 watched the one with the 5 and did likewise. He did not get into comparison match. He did as. He said did as such, took it to the marketplace and multiplied it. He was focused on what he had to do, but he saw success and said, I can duplicate it. But the one with 1 was so worried about what the king was doing that he didn't do anything with what he had. And so my question to you tonight is, have you been stressing over so much that you have lost focus on the assignment you have? That you've been so focused on the issues in society that you're not doing your part? Listen, I'm telling you, what's going on in the news is bad. I am constantly in prayer. It has me stressed. But what if my assignment can relieve some of the pressures that's going on in the world? I can't change what's going on in the White House. I can't change that. That's beyond my control. But I can push my community to vote. I can do that. I cannot change what's going on in Iran. I can pray for them and I can push my community to vote. I can do my part. And so my question to you tonight is, are you controlling the controllables? Are you controlling the controllables? Here it is. Not only focus on your assignment, but number 4 of the things that you got to recognize if you're going to learn to control the controllables. The first thing is, you're not in control of everything. There are some things that are outside of your control. If you remember what they are, put them in the chat. One is time, others' opinion, the outcome. There are some things that you cannot control. People's decision making. You can't control everything. But what you can control is your spirit. You can control how you manage your own life. You can focus on your assignment. Here's number 4. Number 4 is control your response to a problem. Control your response to a problem. I think I've said that 3 times tonight because we don't know how big our responses are. Our responses shift the atmosphere. Our responses shift the atmosphere. Hear me. Psalms 34. David is in a cave. and he coins one of the most dynamic songs out of ever to me. He says, "Oh, magnify the Lord with me and let us exalt his name together." He said, "This poor man cried and he heard me." David's psalm encourages over 400 men that are in the cave with him hiding. And instead of being gloom and down, he encourages them and says, "Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together." He decides to control the response to the problem. When David heard that his son, after his sin, was going to die, David rents his clothes and he covers himself. He goes into prayer. And the Bible says that when David overhears his servants talking about the death of his son, the Bible says that he got up, he took a shower, and he ate, because he couldn't do anything to change that situation. James 1:19 says it this way: "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." How are you controlling your response to problems? Are you overemphasizing the problem and under emphasizing your God? Are you finding yourself in a depressive state? And hear me again. I told y'all, this is not the night. Y'all aren't getting Reverend Garrett that's coming to judge you. Last week, I was waking up in the middle of the night. I got a son that's getting ready to graduate. Prom's coming up. We got other kids that's going to be going to prom. We got responsibilities. All these things going on. I'm getting up in the middle of the night and I'm stressing. I'm tossing and turning. And I want to share this with you because most times that's what we first run to. We run to stressing over the problem or getting angry about the problem instead of controlling our response to the problem. So I want to give you some things before we get out of here. These are I got one more point and we're done. Here it is. If you're going to respond adequately, I'm going to challenge you to do first, listen. Listen to what the problem is before you react to the problem. Process the problem. Don't go off of the whim. Let the problem rest in you and give God a chance to respond to the problem before you respond the way you want to. Sometimes we can be so gung-ho to proving to people that they can't get over on us that we put ourselves in a more detrimental state. And then respond intentionally. When you have listened, when you have processed it, then respond intentionally. Don't go around the about. Don't try to make this happen and have this happen over here. Respond intentionally. Deal with the problem. Not with everything else that you want to deal with in the problem. Deal with the problem. Because sometimes we can be bleeding while training if we don't deal with the problem at hand. I want you to always remember, reactions is an emotional response. Response is leadership. When I'm reacting to something that's because my emotions got in the way. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's because my emotions got in the way. But when I respond with sitting there, listening, hearing, then I can go. Here's the last thing, Knight, and we're done. I got to get some food. Last thing tonight is trust God with what you can't control. I just told you can't control everything. You can control your spirit. You can control being focused on your assignment. You can control your response. But here's the biggest thing you have the right to control: trusting God with what you can't. You can trust God with what you can't control. Some things you just have to release. There's been situations in the church I've had to release and let God, and he resolved them in due season. Some things he's still resolving, but I put it in his hands. And I want to tell you, I want to help somebody tonight, because the most dangerous hands you can put a problem in is in God's hand. You got a cantankerous deacon, put it in God's hands. You got a cantankerous member, put it in God's hand. You got that person lying on you and you know you didn't do what they said, put it in God's hand. Pastor YPJ said something once that I've adopted and I've kept it. He said he was going through one of the worst times of his life. And I think he said, John P. Key said it. It was someone who was an artist who said it, who said to him, let your character outlive the lie. Can I tell you the most dangerous thing you can do is trust God with the things you can't control? Because when God comes in, he does not negotiate with the people that are blocking what God wants to give you. God removes the people out of the way that are hindering you from what he has for you. But he will not fight battles you keep putting your hand on. Ooh, I needed that for myself. God is not going to fight a battle you keep putting your hands on when he's told you to release it. There are times God tells you to fight the battle. There are times God tells you that the battle's not yours, but the Lord's. There are times that God will tell you, watch and see what I'm going to do. And then there are times where he's going to have you hold your hands up and you're outside of the battle, but you're pivotal to the battle. And I want you to understand, no matter what season you're in, learn to trust God with the things that you can't control. The church isn't doing what they need to do financially, put it in God's hand. You start talking to the Lord about what to preach, how to preach, and you just do what God's told you to do and trust him. Watch his favor show up in that way. Doctor didn't give you the report. Trust God with what you can't control. I'm not here to give you some prosperity preaching and tell you that it's just going to change for your better. There may be a process God wants you to go through. But here it is. Trust God with what you can't control. And if you release those things, here it is. This is what I'm not telling you to do. I'm not telling you to ignore the problem. I'm not telling you to avoid the problem. I'm telling you to release the problem. There are certain things I have to acknowledge it's a problem. We were having a meeting last night. And as we were having a Bible study meeting, there was something that one of the members brought up. And I said, you know what? I need to address that because that's something that I never thought about. And now we need to implement it. It's something that's an issue. Now, we're going to need some people to resolve the issue that person brought up. But I can do my part and trust God. I can acknowledge it's a problem. I can address the problem. But then I need God to send me the people to answer the problem. Release it. Release it. I want to share with somebody, and I just feel it right now. If your marriage is a thing that you need to release right now, release it. So many pastors are going through, but I did not say to avoid or ignore. Do what you are called to do as a husband and let God do the repairing. Do what you're called to do as a wife and let God do the repairing. Let God do the repairing in the areas that you can't. You bring the flowers home. You cook the dinner. You be sweet. You be romantic. But let God do the other areas. Let him mold their heart and fix it. And so here it is. Mature leaders know the difference between responsibility and control. Just because I'm responsible for a lot does not mean I'm in control of everything. And so I want you to hear me. Leadership isn't about controlling every situation. It's not about having the discipline to control your environment, but it's having the discipline to control yourself while trusting God in everything. And so some of you have been dealing with some stuff you've been going through. I want to challenge you. As we're going through this process, we're going to be dealing with some stuff this month. We're going to be touching on some bases this month, having some tough conversations this month. I want to challenge you that if this hits you, I need you to do a few things for me tonight. If it would be in your favor for me, I need you to like and share. Would you like and share, as we want to share this message with everyone, and we're still moving people towards YouTube. You know, Facebook only allows it to stay on for 30 days now. As we're moving people to the YouTube channel, would you please ensure that you go to YouTube, type in the Pulpit View, and you will see my face. And what I'm asking you to do is like, subscribe, and share the video so others can see it. Then, if you're a pastor, if you're a leader, you've been going through, you're wondering, can I do both? Is it possible to handle the responsibilities that I have? Is it possible to still be able to have a good marriage, a successful relationship, and have these responsibilities on me? And I feel like that I am having to control everything. I want to share with you tonight that your job is not, hear me and hear me well, your job is not to control everything. But my job, what I love to do, is I help leaders win at work without losing at home. I want you to contact me so we can help you win, not just at the church, not just at the job, but I want you to have a full life. There's something called the 4 burners. And that principle, many of us live it. And that principle is you can never have more than 3 burners on at the same time. You can have, it's more adequate to have 2. So what the burners are is family, finance or work, health, and a passion or dream, right? Depending on who's telling the story. So if it's finances and you have family and you have self or health, and then you have dreams, the things you want to go after, you believe that dreams have to go down if you are trying to work on finances or family, work, and finances or work, family, or health, or one of those things have changed. I want to reimagine that thought. Maybe not all the burners have to be high. They can be on, but they don't all have to be high. I can prioritize what I need to prioritize in the season that I need to prioritize it. If you've ever cooked, you know some things need to simmer. Some things need to be on medium heat. Some things need to be on the warming station. And some things need to be cooked on a high temp. My steak needs to be cooked high. Maybe this season your family is your steak. Maybe this season your family is a thing that you got to spend quality time in making sure you focus. But that does not mean you have to turn off the church. That does not mean you have to give up on your dreams. That does not mean you got to leave the job that you like. It means that you have to make sure you prioritize the thing in this season that is able to carry you to the next season. And so let me help you. You can't control everything, but the things you can control, that's in your wheelhouse. Control the controllables. Listen, if you would, please like and share. If this helps somebody, tag them. Let them know that we're here every Thursday night. We're excited for the journey that we're on. We're excited that you're on the journey with us. Have a great night. Be blessed and be safe.